What's up, guys? It's your boy Paul here with Dad to Me. And normally it's Paul to you, but he actually was a little bit under the weather today, so I said I was going to go ahead and hold the mantle for him just so we can keep the momentum going and keep everything going straight. So kind of bear with me today as we try to keep going down the path that we need to go down, so that we can continue to, to build and to do what we need to do. So ultimately today, I thought it was important. NFL is obviously, that's like my baby. That's something that I really resonate with. In the free agency period is pretty much spoken for. There's a couple of big names that's still out there, a lot of things that still need to happen, but I think that we could do a quick recap, a quick rundown of everything that has happened to this point. So when I was looking at it, I kind of wanted to just break it down a little bit by the deals that I view as impact deals, deals that are going to impact. Because here on our show, we're a Cleveland centric show. We like to cover things from a national perspective as well, but we still gotta, we love our Browns, we love our Guardians, we love our, Cavaliers, all of our Cleveland sport teams. We're definitely there for. So I try to continue to look at it through that lens. But ultimately, I thought like I said, I really love watching Jesse Bates the third play. I think that that's going to be a pretty big loss for Cincinnati, and I think that they're going to definitely feel that. Then you got Javon Hargrave. I believe that he's going to have an impact as well. And even moving over to Bradbury, who actually re-signed with the Eagles. I thought that that was a good core piece, a great core piece to keep together, to keep that Eagles team kind of on the trajectory that it's on right now. Darius Slay, another. I'm thinking that he hasn't been there for a long time, but he was definitely a core piece of what they accomplished last year. I think that's definitely something that was important. I mean, I view him as, one of the top corners in the league. So in order to keep that player going, to keep him, on your team, you're definitely doing something. Then I would, like Jordan Poyer is an impact player. It's funny because he used to play for us, but he wasn't really viewed as an impact player when he was here. But when he left, he obviously flourished with the Bills. Um, let's see if there's anything else that really stand out to me. I mean, like it's like some of the people that's unsigned. It doesn't really surprise me that Odell is unsigned because, like, I really believe that Odell is not really in it when it comes to playing the game. I think that he has a lot going on. He has a son that he just had not too long ago, and I think that he has other interests outside of the game of football. And you got to think about it. I mean, if you had millions and millions of dollars, and you have a new a young son and things like that going on, I mean, you wouldn't just be willing to go out at any cost to play the game of football, to put your body at risk, to do things like that. You just wouldn't do that. So I mean, I think that OBJ, I don't think that that his heart is really in it. Like and he's always hurt. And that's the other thing, he's always battling the injury. It's unfortunate because I mean his talent is immense. I mean, I've seen him do things that, only he can do on a football field at any given time. But at the same time, I mean, his body has failed him for the lack of a better way to put it. His ACLs unfortunately haven't held up. His hamstrings. I mean, he's like a Ferrari that just continues to break down over and over and over again. But he's definitely, a Ferrari. That's something that he is. I mean, it's top notch, top notch. Frank Clark. it's kind of weird that he's out there. I understand that they couldn't come to an agreement and everything like that. I mean, he still could go back to Kansas City. I mean, I get that, but it's just that, it's just surprising to me that a player his caliber, is still out there, still able to be signed. So one of the players that I had my eyes on for the Browns, because remember, I'm centric around the Browns. I know my dad, he has a love-hate relationship with the Browns. You know, it, I mean, he's just been jilted over the past I don't know how many years by the Browns not living up to expectations or just not performing at all. I mean, the Browns do really test your fandom when it comes to rooting for them because for it was a lot of years there where they really didn't give you much to root for, much to go after. And but true fans, they're going to make it through. True fans are going to, get through the bad times, get through the good times, and just, relish in the one playoff win that, I mean, I think that was one of the two playoff wins that I've seen in my life. I think we won in the 90s. We won a playoff game with Vinny Testaverde, but I don't think that anything recently. Obviously, I remember like in the early 2000s with Kelly Holcomb. He that we should have beat the Steelers that day, but obviously we didn't. And I think that was a first round game too. It was like a wild card game. It was a crazy game. We were up big and we just fell apart. So I, I don't know. I mean, we just got to find ways to stay fans because they don't give us a lot to go off of, a lot of times. But here it is, the Browns. I can't be a fan of any other team. I'm from this city, and for better or for worse, I bleed brown and orange. So, but with that being said, I was thinking of a couple of players that I had my eye on, that I really kind of think could could have an impact here. And I know me and my dad, we kind of had not necessarily disagreement, but we kind of were, kind of at odds about how these players in particular could fit on this team. I thought they could, but he was saying maybe, well, I don't know, maybe they're too old, maybe, they're not here and they're not there. So the players that I thought, number one, because here I know that we're trying to put the wide receiver position together as much as possible. I mean, obviously, right now, outside of Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples Jones, you don't really have much that you can rely on. I mean, you got a couple pieces that are developmental at most, but they're definitely not people that you can rely on. I mean, I'm thinking about David Bell. He still has to progress and continue to get better. He showed flashes last year, but he's never going to be that breakaway player, and we need speed at the wide receiver position because ultimately that's what we lack right now. We need someone to stretch the field. So I was thinking, like when I was talking to my dad, that we can go with somebody like DeAndre Hopkins. Now, my dad said that's a pie in the sky. That's never going to happen. But I told him, I said, hear me out. He played with Deshaun Watson. He has chemistry with Deshaun Watson. We have to capitalize on said chemistry with Deshaun Watson if he was to come here. But the other thing is that, like he was saying, he's going to command a big salary. Now, obviously, that would be restructured a bit. I don't think he'll come over here and still make 25 mil or have a $25 million cap hit or anything like that. But at the same time, I do think that he could help this team. But on the other side of that, even though he could help the team, like I said, in my utopian view of this situation, he could also, I mean, his head might not necessarily be in playing the game right now as well. Like he really might be like kind of in, kind of out. I mean, he's done a lot of great things in this league. He's obviously a great player, But at the end of the day, I mean, if he came here, would he just continue to have that fire and drive to play football? And I think that's what we ultimately need. We need players. We need football players. And that's the one thing that I love about our draft class. I want to kind of get to that in a minute, but I love our draft class from the standpoint that we got football players. All different types of football players, but they all look like they're in the trenches. They all work hard. They all do the dirty work, and you need that. Those players perform. Admirably, and they do what they need to do. That's what championship teams are built on, not just on sexy names on paper. You can't every free agent signing is not going to be a slam dunk. Um, you know, it's just not going to be that way. You're not going to win the media every every free agent cycle. But at the end of the day, I want to win in September. I want to get to the playoffs and thrive. I want to win a playoff game or two, go to an AFC championship. And I think, and just from seeing what I saw with the Chiefs and to a lesser degree with the Eagles, I think the Eagles were a pretty stacked team. But with the Chiefs, I mean, they had a lot of rookies, a lot of moving pieces that were able to come together to be able to get them, to the promised land. Now they have obviously a transcendent quarterback with Mr. Mahomes, but at the same time, you still got to surround him with the right pieces, with the right type of football players. And I know that's like a reoccurring thing, but I think that we're talking about the game of football. You got to play football. You have to be a football player. You can't necessarily be a diva or someone who's not really all the way invested in the game when you're trying to succeed, when you're trying to get to the next level. So that brings me over to my man Bobby Wagner. So to me, Bobby Wagner embodies a football player. I mean, he every time I see him, he makes the tackle, he clogs the lane, he does all the dirty work, and whether it's intercepting the pass or sacking the quarterback or making a tackle for loss, he's doing so many things that impact a game. And I understand that he's getting up there, but at the same time I believe that he still has the drive to be a football player on the football field to help a team to be able to be successful. I mean, he had a great year, I thought, last year for the Rams. It's kind of crazy a little bit that he's not being retained by them. But at the same time, I mean, here, a Bobby Wagner, especially on our team, would be. I would love to see Bobby Wagner out there. I think that he would do great. I think that he would help with a lot of the additions that we already have in place to solidify a defense that, quite frankly, underperformed last year. I mean, there was some games that was just really hard to watch because at the end of the day, you knew that we had zero chance. I'm talking about zero chance of stopping the opposition from doing whatever they wanted to do. And the most demoralizing part of that is that they were running the ball consistently. Like it wasn't like, a couple of gash plays here, a gash play there. It was, I'm talking about consistent down the field, like not one-off plays. Like it was like all the way down the field. We're just gonna run. We're not even going to pass. We're not even going to present the opportunity that we're going to pass. We're just going to run all the way down the field and do whatever we want to do. And I thought that was really demoralizing when it came to just watching the game as a fan. And it had to be demoralizing for the guys that's on the field because if you can't stop a team from running on you, that's really the worst thing that you could have happen to you on a football field. Another player that's kind of a little obscure, but I mean, not in my eyes. I mean, he was always on my radar. Was DJ Shark, Junior, Chark. I'm sorry, Junior, and I think that he can help us from the standpoint of he has a little bit more speed. He has big play capability. He has good hands. I think that he would be like a consummate pro somebody that could come in and you could plug into the offense and that he could help you right away. Unlike a David Bell, somebody that needs to develop. I think that he has a little bit more ability than David Bell does, and I think that he can definitely help you and where you're trying to go. Another one is kind of a wild card. I know I just talked about him, but OBJ. Just imagine OBJ coming back to Cleveland. It was such a big deal when we got him the first time. I remember, like getting text messages and calls all at once we understood that we were getting OBJ. It was so much joy. Like I just can't really describe how much joy it was when we actually signed him. But then that was immediately met with despair because it never worked. And when Baker was here, he was never able to connect with with Odell in any way, shape, or form. Let alone, with Jarvis there. I mean, that could have really been a devastating combination, but it never materialized. There are a couple of plays that stand out to me, like the Dallas game when he did the reverse, when he reversed the field and we won the game. And I think he ran a kickoff, or not a kickoff, but a long bomb back. I think it was against the Giants. Yeah, if I remember correctly, it was the Giants. And he ran that all the way back. Flashing the speed, but again, those are plays that those were too far and in between what we needed in order to put a winning brand of football on the field. Um, it was more diva, um, you know, not really like stuff that we had a lot of stories that weren't really about football. But it's so tantalizing because he's such a great talent. So it's like if he ever wanted to play, if he wanted to play, and really put his mind to it, I mean, he could still be a devastating receiver. I mean, he's so fast. His hands are great. He's such a reliable target, but at the same time, you got to wonder about where his head is. Another one that kind of caught me was Marcus Peters. You can never really have enough cornerbacks, but I think that Marcus Peters would be like a big cornerback that can continue to help us, to get better in the secondary. I mean, having Marcus Peters definitely wouldn't hurt. And another one for the wide receiver position, I would say, would be Nicole Hardman. That you talk about somebody that can definitely get the top off of the defense. I mean, he would definitely give you speed, in big play capability. I mean, he's been playing with Mahomes. He's been in big games on big stages, played in the Super Bowl. That's the type of player, the type of influence that you need to have going forward. So with that being said, I'm really curious to know what you guys think. What free agents you think that are out there that would be a good fit with the Browns and what they're trying to do. Because I was talking to some guys at work the other day, and I think this is going to be a really big year for Kevin Stefanski because he's going to have to put all this together because it's really all on him and Deshaun Watson because we're only going to go as far as Deshaun takes us because the way that we're putting this all together, we're putting it together kind of like the way the Chiefs have put it together. You have your quarterback. Okay, now you have to surround them with pieces. They're not going to be top end Ferrari pieces. All of them are not going to be that way. But they're going to be pieces, and he's going to have to elevate us. He's going to have to make us better. He's going to have to take our franchise and really take it to the next level just because we finally have that franchise quarterback that we so wanted for all those years. And I really hope that they can put it together, but I think that I love the free agent signings to this point because they're all, in my estimation, football players. Guys that are doing the work, guys that still got their head in the game, guys that actually want to ball out. They still want to do it. So I want to kind of transition over to the NBA playoffs. And I think that here it's really it to me it's taken off. I'm not that big of a basketball fan. I know my dad would be the first to tell you, but ultimately, I'm finding myself pulled into these Cavs the same way that I was pulled in before in 2003, I believe, when LeBron played for the Cavs initially after he got drafted, because I remember that team, was up and coming, and we didn't have a lot of pieces, we didn't have anything, but we had that one transcendent player. But see, now I feel like we have a team of transcendent players, where now I think that the Cavs can go even further, because it's a lot different than just having one player. You got multiple players. So from Mobley to Allen and Mitchell, all of those players, and Garland, all those players, I mean, that core, you keep that core together, they're just going to continue to get better. So, with all that being said, that's what I was watching, and I've been watching, because it's really an exciting brand of basketball, and it's fun to see it in this league as the teams continue to get better. I'm not just talking about the Cavs. I mean, all around the league, you can see teams getting better. Like, I was talking to my dad the other day about the Sacramento Kings. The Sacramento Kings, to me, I knew when we played them earlier this year, I said, Dad, I said, I mean, this is a tough team. I mean, Sacramento is really good. And this was before, they became, I think they're up to number 2 in the West right now. But this was long before, that came to fruition. I remember we played them, and their record, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't really good. But at the same time, you could tell when we played them that this team was going to be a team to be reckoned with. So I just wanted to kind of pick out, because as the playoffs approach, some contenders. I just want to see who in the East and who in the West, 4 teams, 4-4, could make a run at a championship, because I think that's the one thing about basketball that I've always been conflicted with. It's only a couple teams that's really vying for a title in any given year. Now, this year is different because I've never really seen the Western Conference be as wide open as it is right now. The West is wide open. I mean, I could see I could see a number of teams making a run at the finals. I mean, I just could. And then even like I was talking about those up and coming teams, the Minnesota Timberwolves are another team that's tough. I mean, that's a tough team to play. I mean, they play a tough style of basketball. Their offense is up tempo. They lack on defense, but at the same time, I mean, they're quick. They're in your face, and they're long. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and you just have to deal with them. So the teams that I think out west that can make a legitimate run at a championship this year, I mean, obviously you got to start it off with the Nuggets. I think that the Nuggets, if they get it, they still got to get it all together. Jokic, they still got to get it all together. But at the same time, I think that this may be the year that they needed to get them over the top. They still got to cross that threshold though. Like they haven't crossed over. Like they haven't gone from a good team to a great team because they haven't crossed over by beating the other great team. Like they'll get there, they'll have a good record, but they just don't push past. I think this playoff cycle is where you need to see the great players like, you know, Jokic's always in the MVP conversation, but I'm pretty sure that he would rather be in the championship conversation so that he can amass these rings. But you can never do that if you don't beat the great teams in the playoffs, and that's what you're ultimately judged by. Another team that I think out there, I already mentioned them, is the Sacramento Kings. I know that they're young. I know that they have pieces in De'Aaron Fox that don't have a lot of playoff experience, but that's what makes them deadly to me because they don't know any better. But they're still playing a brand of basketball that again you have to deal with. I mean, it's nothing that you can do. You have to deal, and like Sabonis, man, Sabonis is playing out of his mind this year. I mean, I don't know if you guys watched the Cavs game when they played him earlier this year, but he is playing outside of his mind, and he's going to be a problem come playoff time. The Suns, you always got to have the Suns in there, but with them as and that's just a product of their collection of talent and the way that is all put together. KD is always hurt. When I say always hurt, I mean always hurt. Like he could twist his ankle and be out for 2 weeks, or he could look the other way and be out for a little bit of time. It's just I don't know. It's just something about it, like where he's just not. His health is a problem, and his availability is not available. I mean, it's just not. So and him and Chris Paul. Chris Paul is the same way. Chris Paul has failed fantastically in the playoffs because he's gotten hurt or and he's had to miss time and it's hurt his team, it's hurt me personally, it's hurt his legacy because he hasn't been able to come through in those moments. Yeah, he's come through in the playoffs and the lower rounds or in the regular season, but he has yet to really have a signature playoff moment in his career. And I think that he really needs that if he wants to be mentioned among the all-time greats. If he wants to get up in that discussion, he has to not just have a championship, but he needs to have a playoff signature moment. And I think this could be the year that it happens. So what we have the Nuggets, we have the Kings, we have the Suns, and then in fourth, there's a number of teams that can kind of jump in there, but you always got to keep until they lose in the playoffs, you have to keep the Warriors in there. And me and my dad had a long discussion about this. And I know that it doesn't look good right now. But when the ball goes in the air and the playoffs are on the line, it's going to be hard to put the Warriors out because ultimately they have their whole team there. You have Klay Thompson, you have Draymond Green, you have Steph Curry, you have Andrew Wiggins. Those players have all been on the big stages, and I'm not even talking about the other swing man that his name is eluding me right now. Um, Hold on one second here, because here he's the one that really, yeah, Jordan Poole. I'm sorry. He puts it all together because when he's on, that makes them very dangerous. But at the end of the day, you have to deal with them, and whoever plays them, if they get in the playoffs, whoever plays them is going to have to put them out. They're going to have to actually dethrone them and put them out of their misery. If that's this year, it could be this year. Maybe this year they don't have it, but I got to see it first. I can never count Curry and company out until they're actually lost. So moving over to the East. So obviously you have Milwaukee. Milwaukee is a veteran laden team. They've been through the playoffs. They've been through the battles. They got experience on their side, and they have one of the most lethal players in the league, and Giannis, that could just do whatever he wants. I mean, he could score whenever he wants. He could take over a game whenever he wants. He could do whatever he wants. And that's just who he is. And I mean, that's the ultimate game breaking option. Then you got the Celtics. The Celtics also have a veteran laden team. They've been through the battles. They've done all of that. So you definitely got to deal with them. Then you got the Sixers, and I got to put the Sixers up there because again, my hometown Cavs have played them recently, and they haven't really fared that well against them. And I think a lot of that has to do with Embiid, but still the composition of the Sixers, I believe, is more complete at this point. They have more experience than the Cavs do at this point, and I just feel like it's a bad matchup. Like the Cavs just don't match up well against the Sixers for whatever reason. They just don't match up well with them. And then you got to go with the Cavs. Because here in number 4, they're in the number 4 slot, but I really do believe that they're the 4th best team in the East. The only thing that can derail them again is their youth, by them being so young, and not really having any playoff experience outside of Donovan Mitchell. That could come up to bite them, but obviously it's going to serve them in the future because they should get that experience this year. I think a first round win would really, really help them, would really put them in a position where they could build and grow from this point. But I think asking them to go to the Eastern Conference Finals this year with teams like the Bucks, the Celtics, the Sixers, you still got to get through the Knicks. You're going to have to deal with the Heat. It's teams out there that can jump up and just bite you. It happens every year in the playoffs. So, those are things that you just got to deal with. But the Cavs are on the right trajectory to get to where they want to go. So ultimately, I'm really looking forward to the playoffs. I think that's something that, ultimately that's going to be very fun to watch. Very fun to watch because it's going to be some stuff that happens that we don't expect. We don't expect for it to happen. We don't think that it's going to happen. We're like, oh yeah, they're going to just run through this and something totally different to happen. That's why I can't rule out Golden State because Golden State, they've been counted out all year. They have a terrible record. They play terrible at times. They don't look focused. But I'm telling you, something could just snap and they could just go into warrior mode where it seems like we play them forever. But if they could just go into that mode where they go when they win their championships, they're going to be a very tough out, man. So ultimately, Dad will be back next week. I talked to him. He was very upset that he couldn't do the show, but I told him to get some rest. He still got those quick takes coming out. So you want to check us out on TikTok as Father Son Talk Sports on TikTok. Just search it, or the hashtag is there as well. We'll also post them to YouTube, and they go to Instagram as well. So this show will, this will obviously be the podcast, so it'll go out and be available on all major platforms. But what we're doing is we're definitely trying to grow as a channel. So subscribers is the name of the game. We have to get as many subscribers as we possibly can so that we could try to reach as many people as we possibly can, because what we want to have the work meet the the viewership, because ultimately it's fun when you have people that you're doing it for. People can enjoy the content, people can enjoy your angles and your perspectives. I think once that's in place, then that's definitely something that's worth doing. So until next week, guys, I want you guys to be safe. Like I said, Pops will be back next week and we go from there. Talk to y'all soon.
Brought to you by Create 2 Media. It's the Father Son Talk Sports Show.